All right, welcome everybody to the Market Hangout After Space. So here we are. Bitcoin went through and actually closed the week right at the prior all-time high of $69,000. And here, we go through and the week is just getting started. Again, this area over here, the 70K area between 79 and 69K, this is going to be a big hurdle for Bitcoin. This is what's going to define, in my mind, whether this ends up being a failed rally and we essentially come back through, re-enter essentially the current downtrend, basically marking this as a deviation, and potentially kind of see lower prices and everything, or we go through and we start confidently going through and holding some of these levels as support and essentially begin challenging the 70K level, thus actually marking, in my mind, basically the more significant barrier to the overall trend. Again, obviously, even just going through and looking at the downtrend that we have been in, this is kind of one of those areas that I would definitely keep an eye on, both between the trend and the $70,000 level. It does sound like we did get joined with someone, but we'll go ahead and keep getting this recorded and make sure that it gets posted. But yeah, this is all raw for everybody, So if there's me messing up, saying something, word vomit, whatever the case may be, I don't edit videos. I just give it to you. Here it is. So all right, again, the $70,000 level here for Bitcoin, for me, I do believe is going to be the much more significant level to continue to go through and monitor. And then from there, we'll have to go through and continue to pay attention and watch this. If we go through and if we're not looking at essentially the structural aspect of this here, so we'll go ahead and hide the drawings. Even going through and pulling up the FibMA. Earlier today, we did go through and see a really nice clean back test of the orange band. I would like to go through and actually see this continue to hold. And if it can, then at that point in time, I would argue that at some point we would likely see kind of a move back towards the upside, potentially coming into contact with the red band. Now, the red band at that point in time, currently with where it sits, is very close to the all-time high that was set back in March. If it can go through and potentially challenge that, that would probably lead towards a new all-time high being set. Now, again, when we're looking at potential shifts in market structure, so far, locally, the orange band has been essentially the primary resistance point that we've gone through and followed throughout this entire trend, where every time we've come in contact with the orange band, and right now we are currently testing it, but the prior 4 times has led towards basically a pullback into, at least at bar minimum, the yellow band. In some cases, it has been a little bit steeper, but again, these are going to be critical areas to go through and continue to monitor and kind of pay attention to. Again, when we are in trending environments and everything, the purple band and beyond can very likely lead towards, big expansions towards the upside. Meanwhile, technically, anytime we are kind of in a more trending environment, both the yellow band and the blue band here specifically have historically been very good times to go through and look for potentially long positions towards the upside. And then obviously every once in a while, we have seen, tests in the green band and so on, but typically on the 4-hour time frame, when we would see a test of the green band, it is generally a larger concern, for the broader market as a whole. Prime example would actually be during the last cycle. Again, we had entered into a massive expansion phase. We broke well beyond. Things were much riskier, and it wasn't really until we saw basically the cracks in the trend when Bitcoin had come back through and started testing the green band. Now, obviously, we went through and we formed a double top, putting in a ever so slightly new all-time high, but ultimately, again, that trend that we were hoping for never came to fruition, and we came back through and again started catching the green band, as areas of local support, trying to go through and move back up towards the upside. So in the same way that we can, kind of explode beyond and go higher than, localized risk levels, it can be very, very similar towards the downside. So definitely something to go through and continue to monitor. Again, pay attention to the $70,000 level. Go through and follow the orange band this week. We'll have to go through and see how this continues to unfold. But again, pretty significant area here for the market. Outside of this, going through and let me pop over to this chart and we'll pull up ETH BTC. There we go. We'll get rid of that there. Perfect. Okay. So just really want to cover this one real quick as well. So when we're going through and we're zooming out on this a little bit, let me move my frog a little bit. All right, perfect. So when we're zooming out on this a little bit, one of the key areas that I do very strongly think that we're essentially kind of in right now is potentially kind of the next leg of the cycle's accumulation zone for ETH BTC. So what do I mean by that? I very, very strongly believe that price action below 0.04 for ETH BTC is going to be a very, very and is a very, very attractive area to go through and potentially hedge your Bitcoin position by using either some Bitcoin to accumulate Bitcoin, or if you're really looking at something that has just been hammered in Bitcoin terms, and potentially looking for something with a little bit lower risk, but is expecting something to where Ethereum, for instance, would greatly outperform Bitcoin in kind of the next leg. This could be a great way to go through and kind of hedge your Bitcoin position by accumulating some Ethereum in the expectation that you could then swap your Ethereum back to Bitcoin once it goes through and kind of enters in to kind of the next trending market of its own. Now, where could that potentially go down to? Obviously, right now, with where things currently stand, we do not know if the bottom is in for ETH BTC. But we do know, in my mind, everything that I'm looking at, the different things I'm studying, this is an attractive area. We don't know if ETH BTC goes through, drops down to 0.036, 0.035, maybe even into 0.034, or maybe even slightly below. But regardless, I would argue that any price action that we would see between 0.04 and 0.03 is likely going to be a very, very attractive area for ETH BTC, looking forward to the time of when it would confidently break out, hold, move towards the upside, and greatly outperform Bitcoin. The broader altcoin market, looking at it from total 3 divided by Bitcoin and others divided by Bitcoin, very, very similar setup as well. These as well are basically at kind of their cycle lows currently. I do think that there is a chance that we do see the altcoins potentially go through and bottom. Even if ETH BTC has already gone through and bottomed, my expectation would be ETH BTC, we would know if it bottoms before the broader altcoin market actually goes through and bottoms. That is my expectation. That is what I am looking at. And that's because I very strongly believe that once this next leg of the cycle goes through and moves, yes, we're going to have some different altcoins here and there, probably continue to outperform Bitcoin, but the broader altcoin market probably will at that point in time probably find a bottom against Bitcoin. I know it's crazy. Bitcoin goes through and moves up, and so why would the broader altcoin? It would be simply this: probably that first initial breakout move by Bitcoin. The broader altcoin market will not be able to keep up with the move that Bitcoin goes through and makes. Now, don't get me wrong, there's probably going to be a good handful of different altcoins here and there that will likely make, 20%, 30%, 70% moves in potentially a single day. We actually just watched ApeCoin go through and do this past week. And that was essentially despite the fact that Bitcoin is still remaining range bound, stuck relatively within its multi-month downtrend like we were talking about before. But again, my overall expectation is that the broader altcoin market, we are likely moving into kind of that final accumulation zone. The key question right now is whether Bitcoin can confidently break 70K and hold it, or if we end up needing to go through and revisit some lower prices. Now, my current bias, where I'm currently standing, I think that this week is going to be very, very pivotal. And so if Bitcoin can show strength at the $70,000 level, then at that point in time, I think that it is more likely that Bitcoin goes through and challenges its current all-time high than otherwise. If Bitcoin continues to kind of go through and show weakness throughout this week, then at that point in time, I think that we would potentially kind of have our answer, and that maybe the rest of October would actually be spent potentially back testing, maybe some of these more critical structural levels, and or potentially even something as simple as maybe coming back into contact with, let me pull it back up, the yellow band. Whoops, wrong time frame. 4 hour. So maybe even potentially coming back and retesting the yellow band. So obviously these are, this is the Fib MA. It is tied to moving averages, and so it does go through and move as price action moves. So if, we end up potentially kind of showing weakness here, potentially maybe throughout the rest of October, maybe at that point in time, it could potentially be where the yellow band be somewhere between 62, 63,000. And then, we'll have to wait and see what goes on from there. But so far, everything's looking good. So far, we are holding the orange band. Again, I'd say if we can continue to hold this and show strength around the $70,000 level, taking out this key high that we had established over here, that would bring much more confidence into the break of the multi-month downtrend that we had been in. And again, at that point in time, potentially by the end of October, we could be challenging the current all-time high. But definitely keep an eye out for this. These are big, big levels to monitor. Big potential structural changes. But again, these are also big structural resistance areas that we must monitor and be prepared for the downside risk if it goes through and happens. In my mind, that downside risk, if it presents itself, would be incredible final buying opportunities. But that's just me. That's just what I'm looking for, and that's just what I'm looking at. I've been pretty vocal throughout all of this, accumulating different altcoins during each of these corrections that we've gone through and had. So in my mind, I for the most part, I'm okay either way. If we go through and we pump, I've gone through and I've accumulated. If we, see one final correction, I'd be happy to go through and pick up some more altcoins on a discount. But all right, I think with that, we'll wrap up the video. Yeah, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. So, all right, thanks guys for tuning in.